Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing well out there. Okay, so just as a reminder before we get started, this channel is for educational purposes only, or perhaps in the eyes of the law, entertainment purposes only, whichever one suits their needs. So, yeah, happy Saturday evening or whatever time of day it may be where you're at. Good to see everybody. Wanted to just quickly give a shout out. I know Shannon dropped in really quick and he's got a show he's putting on. So shout out to Shannon. Hope you have a good show, my friend. Okay, so tonight we are going to finally get to this video. I've been meaning to do it for a while, and thankfully Dan is around. So it's going to be the Loosh Files episode number 3. It's going to be Tom Campbell talking about Bob Monroe. Now, there is one video that he's talking with Chad from Open Your Reality. And there's another video that's from his channel with a out-of-body experiencer or a regular astral traveler. And but really the one with Chad is interesting because as Dan and I are going to talk about, it's riddled with just contradicting his own narrative. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dan. It's great to have you back, brother. Hope all is well with you, my friend.
Hey, Mark, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
hi, everybody.
Sounds good. Yeah, what have you been up to?
Oh, just trying to stay one step ahead of the Matrix. Little problems popping up here and there, always constantly need to fix things.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
It's always something.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, I watched a movie tonight on Netflix called The Mother with Jennifer Lopez. Have you seen that yet?
No, I don't think I'd watch anything with Jennifer Lopez.
It was an action movie, and I tend to watch those. It's also like a revenge plot, which I like those. But actually, that's not what was interesting about the movie. Is there's a lot of scenes in the movie dealing with nature or being like out in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And for as beautiful as everything is, there is like. It's not really part of the plot. It just happens to be in the movie. It's really evident that nature is constantly trying to kill you.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword like everything else, right? I mean, it's beautiful and it heals, and then on the opposite end, it will kill you or just royally mess you up in some way.
Yes, it was quite brutal at times. Honestly, I can't believe that Netflix put this on because some of the other garbage they've been making lately. But actually, the movie was really good. Actually,
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, that's about it. I got to watch a movie today, and between all the gotta fix this, gotta get a replacement for that, this broke,
Of course. Yeah, the blender, right? You were saying?
Blender shattered all over the floor.
Oh, shattered.
Yeah.
What did you drop it?
It just kind of slipped. Yeah, of course.
Well,
and as a result, now we have a plastic one.
Yes. Yes, the chemical plastic blender.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't think anyone wants to hear any more about blenders, but
no, let's get into the Loosh. Let's get into the Loosh. This is really fascinating. Everybody sit tight. This is going to be good.
Yeah. It's I know we talked about this video, and I think tonight was probably your first time seeing it, but it's incredible how defensive he is, accusatory, and he's using all like the typical words that you'd expect like the mainstream to say, right? I mean, we'll get into it, but it's just it's pretty nasty.
Yes, I made a video that involved Tom Campbell just a couple of videos ago. It's only like a 10, 15-minute video. It was because I happened to stumble on an article about him and this whole thing with love. It's all about love. It's logical. And I made for everybody that didn't see that video, you can check it out later. But basically, what I was saying is you cannot saying that it's all about love is absolutely logical. It was like ludicrous to me because love is not about logic. It's an emotion.
Exactly.
It's not. Oh God! So
well
much.
said, man.
There's something I find very disturbing about him. I can't put my finger on it.
Well, could it be that he worked for NASA?
That could be one reason. The other reason is it just seems to be very pompous about it.
He is exactly. Yeah, he just comes off, like there's no wiggle room, right? I mean, even though you and I will sit here and talk about like what we think's going on here, and there's a lot to back it up. By no means are we sitting here and kind of on our high horse and saying we have it all figured out either.
No.
I mean, it's very pompous.
Yeah, I don't have it all figured out. I'm just seeing patterns and reporting on the conclusions I come up with. Like I see you do and a few others out there. It's just, hey, look, we're just following the evidence wherever it leads. And we're not trying to prop up some kind of premise by arguing with ourselves or using cognitive dissonance to do it. We're just saying, look, I didn't start to find this. And when I started this like 10 years ago, it was to simply, actually, it was ridiculous. I was looking for
religion, right?
Authentic Christianity is what I really started to look for. Look at where I ended up.
Yeah. And how long did you get stuck in the Orthodox way? I know that's a common pit stop for many.
I was never actually stuck in it. It was weird because even as a child, I remember constantly questioning, 8 years old in religion class. I went to Catholic school for those who are new here that don't know me very well. Went to Catholic school from kindergarten to the end of high school. Heavy brainwashing going on. Heavy indoctrination, guilt trips and all the other stuff they throw at you. During that time period, I never fully bought into the brainwashing. I don't understand how other people are so easily duped all the time. I really don't.
Well,
I would drive teachers crazy. They throw in a lot of the love formula in the Catholic religion. gotta forgive your enemies. Gotta love your enemies. All this other garbage. And then when I would point out simple contradictions, what about here where it says there's a time to hate?
Dan, sit back down and read page 47.
Yeah. Their heads would explode, I can tell you that.
Surprised they didn't give you the dunce cap.
A couple times I got to stand in the corner. Other times, I was lucky because civilians would teach the religion classes. You couldn't question the nuns; they would just hit you back then.
Yeah, fuck you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, messed up. All right, so let's get into this. I mean, it's going to be kind of short. What I was thinking, just to let everybody know, there's 2 videos. There's so much that I want to say just in the video with Chad that, it's a short clip, but there's a lot to say on it. So maybe what we'll do is kind of play these clips, and then maybe replay that one with Chad one additional time, because there's just so much in it. And then depending on how you feel, I was thinking of kind of going over the Loosh chapter again here on this stream. I know I've done it once, but I think it's kind of important. There's a number of new listeners, and it's kind of good to have it refreshed in your head and take a look at it. So anyways, depending on how much time you have, Dan, hopefully you'll be able to stick around, but otherwise no big deal. Okay.
I'll hang out as long as I can, sure.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so let's get rolling. And here we go.
Sad.
Yeah, we only have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to ask you one more question here. Bob Monroe, who was your mentor, you talked about him earlier. I believe he discussed the possibility of like bad spirits or demon-like spirits when he went out of body using humans for Loosh. And some of my viewers wanted to know what you think about that. I recently had a gentleman on my show by the name of Howdy Mikowski. Are you familiar with him by any chance, Tom?
No.
Okay. Well, it was one of the most popular, for some reason.
Right away, he's like, yeah, okay, so Chad asks him, about Loosh, and then brings up Howdy. Do you know him? Is one of my most popular things. And Tom's like, no.
Yeah, even his like the expressions that you see on people, like the guy on the right, the Chad guy there, and you can see how even in this still motion here, you can see the micro expressions on his face. Mm-hmm. Now, what the heck is going on the left? I don't know. I kind of pay attention to people's body language sometimes. I can't get a read. It's like
yeah, it's very, very rigid. One of the things, and some people say like, oh, this is nothing, but one of the things I look at too is like, are there smiles, right? And he smiles here and there, like it. But if you've watched a number of his videos, he rarely smiles. It's like this, and I know not everybody smiles and this and that, but I mean it's I don't know, just something about that kind of doesn't sit well with me. I don't want to say anything else, but I don't know.
No, it's just I can't. You look for like expressions on, it's natural to see, and I can't get. I don't know. It seems very monotone. It's very like also absolute.
Oh, that's a big one.
It's absolutely this way, and it can't be any other way. Mm-hmm. But yet, there's logical. There's like all kinds of problems with. Mm-hmm. Anyway, go ahead.
A lot of them. Yeah, sorry.
Mostly did not experience a horrific end, and the images you showed.
Okay. Well, it was one of the most popular. For some reason, it was one of the most popular interviews I've had on my channel in the last couple of years. Has
for some reason
over 40,000 views, but a lot of people, I was surprised by this. A lot of people agreed with him. He believes that our world is really nothing more than a soul trap designed to keep us here so that these demon spirits can live off our energy. And he said things are progressively getting worse. And I wanted to know what your thoughts about that. I know it's a big question to ask with just 5 minutes to go, but if you can do your best.
Sure. My thoughts about that are that is all nonsense. It doesn't work like that. This is not a trap. It's not, do anything but go to the light. If you go to the light, that's a trap. I've seen that sort of stuff, but that's just nonsense. It doesn't work like that at all. On the other hand, negative people will create negative scenarios. That's what a lot of the the things that we deal with today in the social media. There's so much negativity. We live in a very negative space, and all of our culture, all of our what newspapers, shows, books, movies, mostly are all about negativity. terrible things, awful things, people being hurt, people being killed, et cetera, et cetera. So we're awash in negativity in our culture. And because of that, people are negative and they make up negative stories. So.
Okay. I mean, just, Dan, you want to drop something in here?
Look,
I mean, it's like, what the fuck?
I don't. Unfortunately, I don't have the link to the other thing he did about the. It's all about love. It's totally logical, and this is the only answer for everything. If everything is all about love, then where is all this negativity coming from? It seems to be contradicting his own theory.
Exactly. And I mean, and all I'm thinking in my head, it's not just even what you said too, but like I'm thinking, what about just the horrible, shit heap of a design that the human body is?
Yeah.
What about the historic record? Regardless, again, I know I always preface this by saying, regardless of what you believe about the historic record and how accurate it is, and we all know that, or at least many of us know that, the historic record for many things is complete bull. But there are certain patterns, just like looking at everything else. The patterns show that suffering is always there. Us being stomped on by some exterior force that wishes to rob us of our sovereignty is always clamping down somewhere. There's child sacrifice, there's animal sacrifice, adult sacrifice, there's all sorts of heinous crimes that that can happen and have happened, and that goes back to what we have in recorded history. So, who is, again, if we're coming here and everything's about love, who's the idiot love maker who created this meat suit and all of these scenarios of atrocities where where the design is so bad and so messed up that we can't progress, right? We can't. I mean, how can humanity not get its shit together after all this time? Really? I mean, very, very basic question.
Sure. I mean, first of all, the obvious answer is, which I pointed out even many years ago, how can you reincarnate here for a learning experience when you cannot remember anything?
Exactly.
I mean, this is the most ludicrous thing. This premise is absolutely ludicrous. Now, you watch any television show, any movie that deals with amnesia as part of the plot, and you will see that, people basically are stripped away completely of their identities. They don't know who they are. And we have agreed to this. My conclusion is we kind of have agreed to it. It's something Monroe talks about in the whole entry gatekeeper thing, right? The entry director.
Mm-hmm.
Ed.
And are you a shill, Dan? Because you said that we agreed to come in here. Is all your other work disqualified because you said that?
Well,
I mean, that's what's going on. I'm just busting your balls. You know that. But.
Yeah, no. Here's a great point here. Look, obviously, like a lot of these people that are everything is love and light peddlers have never actually. They're either able to ignore even their own suffering, or maybe they're just in a convenient spot where they don't live in an area that they have to endure great suffering, and they can't, like, just by looking at what's going on all over the world, they don't seem to have like empathy for the massive amount of evil and suffering that goes on a daily basis, and they seem to excuse it all away and just come up with this, like, it's all love and light thing, and it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Makes no sense whatsoever.
No, how can you learn learn things if every time you come back here you forget everything you just learned?
Yeah. It's such common sense. I mean, that's really the nail in the coffin with all of this, right? I mean, that's like the the linchpin for the whole premise that this thing is one big scam. And if you can't remember, Christ, we can't even remember our most recent lifetime. You know, some may be able to tap in, and we can kind of go off a little bit on this one, but you know, some may be able to tap into multiple past lives, but are they getting the full picture? Absolutely not. Are they getting the full picture of where they came from before entering this entire system? Not just Earth, but the overall matrix system? No. And anyone who's saying different, there's just not enough information to substantiate it. And to be honest, I find pretty much anyone that's made those claims to be completely full of it. Time and time again, like there's just nothing there. It's, you know, and I hate, you know, I don't like discounting, experience or cases or stuff like that. But like when you start to kind of unravel what some say, and they are thoroughly convinced that where they came from was outside of this system, what you start to hear are bits and pieces, clues, basically, hinting that the hell no. They are describing something that is aligned with what this whole system would be. I mean, I don't know about you, Dan, but I mean, I get emails and all. I mean, I can't check them all, but I mean, like, you get emails and comments and big claims here and there that are just completely out of the norm and don't align with anything. And granted, of course you got to have wiggle room. You got to you always keep, you know, an open mind with everything. But the point is if you're sitting here as a human, or even in the astral realm, because even the accounts in the astral, the life between lives phase, it's clear that there is some sort of memory wipe going on, not just here, but in the astral too. So it's really, it's incredible how disconnected we are, and we just don't know. We don't know.
Right. Yes. Even in near-death experience and out-of-body. No, the out-of-body thing is for me a little bit, you know, less evidential. But I do take it as you know, witness testimony for people that have OBEs, because the information seems to be very consistent. So it's important information.
For sure.
NDEs are even more valuable because we have case after case of what they call veridic or verified NDEs. That's people that have heart attacks in the hospital. They're out of their body. They've gone to a different floor. Then later in interviews, they confirm that the nurse at that station can confirm that what the person claims they witnessed is correct information. That's how you know that consciousness leaves the body for sure. Absolutely. Then you have all this stuff that they encounter in the afterlife, and nobody seems to have, even these New Ager types with their awakening and all this other stuff that they go on. I think there's there is a lot of truth in mixed messages with all kinds of sources, but they tell you, you get a lot of sources that tell you that. And in the astral plane, your image, the way your astral body is, or your spirit body, your soul body, can be changed by your own thoughts. So your appearance is malleable. So therefore, you're dealing with other entities when you encounter them, that their appearance must also be malleable. So that everybody's a shapeshifter in the spirit plane.
Yeah.
So now you have that, and you have zero interrogation going on, and you have evidence that you can conjure environments or put yourself in a place with your intention and your imagination. So, you know, Lord, if they ever get a hold of me, they're going to be sitting in a kind of like a law and order interrogation room suddenly. I'm going to have files in front of them with atrocities and have them try to explain everything. Nobody questions these people. Everybody always says, you have tons of videos. I received a download. It was presented to me.
Exactly.
It's shown. It was shown. I was shown this. Well, okay. We have that technology here in the physical plane. They can deep fake technology. You can show anybody anything.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible. It really is. I mean, how can after all this time, like you said, there's no pushback, none.
Nobody questions the information they're given. They just come back and it's like this. Now I've always had like even though my career choice may not seem like it is, but I have never had this thing that just because somebody's an authority figure, I'm going to bow down to them. But I've obviously we've witnessed that most people do that. If it's a perceived authority figure, they just will go along with whatever and not question it. There used to be bumper stickers in the 80s and 70s that question authority. I guess nobody does that anymore. So that's my thing. And then you have Campbell here. He portrays himself as an authority. I'm telling you right now, and I know you probably feel the same way, Mark. I'm not an authority. I'm just telling you the stuff I've researched and what it indicates to me. And you should do your own. People out there should do their own investigation. The information's out there. We live in the age of super information now. You can find out anything about anything, right? Hello?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I said, like, yeah, since the beginning of this channel, I've said probably just about every single stream, do your own research. Like this is, what I see. This is what Dan sees. This is what Wayne sees. We all kind of see these kind of patterns and these clues, but don't trust me. Don't trust Dan. Don't trust Wayne. Don't trust anybody. Go out, do your own research and prove it to yourself. There's like, over 20 different data points and growing that kind of show how everything kind of feeds into the same system. And the beauty is, like you said, we live in a time where we have access to all this. It's so easy to be able to see it. But don't trust, anything. Go out and do your own research, because I think the most important part of all of this is getting to where you are like deep within able to realize your true power and that you can call the shots. And if you don't get there, then there's a good chance they're just going to run you down. And that's the worst part, right? Maybe that's not true too, right? But like, I think if you kind of have this conviction, like this unrelenting conviction within you that, you're going to be just fine. You're going to do your own thing. You realize that intention is power. Intention is how you can escape this BS. Like there's no amount of value that you can put on something like that. And that's what researching this topic will do for you.
Yes. That's why I put up my website, Overwatch Project. The two main links on that website, OverWatchProject.com, is the links and the books section. Because that's pretty much everything I've looked at to come to my conclusions. And there's years and years worth of material there. I actually linked to all of Tom Campbell's stuff there. He was part of my investigation. I had to spend more time. His books are so freaking enormous. Have you seen the size of his books?
Yes, they're massive. They're
They are-
Ike style books. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like I haven't looked at what he said. I drudged through this material. Here's the weird part. My entire theory of reality is summed up on the homepage of OverWatchProject.com. It is literally like 2 or 3 paragraphs long.
Yeah, no, it's a great site. Everybody should check it out. And just as a reminder, you can grab a link in the description tab, and perhaps I can post it, or maybe one of the mods is listening and can pop it up too. You know, don't forget to check out Dan at OverWatchChannel on YouTube and OverWatchProject on Odyssey, and then of course OverWatchProject.com. So
I can actually put it up there. But let me see. I'm going to click it into the comments here. There, it's there.
right, thank you.
The thing is that it's not like I didn't go through Tom Campbell's work. It was important.
Same.
And it's, but when I'm listening to him come up with his conclusions or his analysis of his own information, I'm like, where did he just get that from? Later this week, I'm going to do a short video on a new religion I found called Godhoodism. In that religion, where you become your own, the theory is that where consciousness is, it gets born and then it slowly has to evolve to its own godhood so it can make its own universe.
Yes.
And populate the multiverse. It's interesting. But even in this video clip that you're showing, there's a moment where he says demons are feeding us. Remember that is refers to a religious term. Even the term archon is kind of misleading. It's just a parasite type of scenario. It's no different than being in some kind of relationship with some abusive narcissist. Is what it seems to be happening. Is that's why on the bottom of my homepage I have that quote from Active Side of Infinity from Carlos Castaneda, where it basically says we're now like chicken coops. We're like human arrows, he called it, or whatever. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He's another one that exposed the soul trap in his way. Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure. It's very hard to explain in words, in human language, stuff that goes beyond the 4 dimensions here. Because we have amnesia, so we don't remember. I'm pretty sure my origin point isn't this place. I feel kind of out of place here, obviously. That other channel you sent me a link to a week ago, that guy's theory about source being sort of just like a progenitor of consciousness, that's a pretty good theory. That guy has some good stuff on there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think
he said something interesting because a lot of these people, you want to go back to source, and he said something very profound, and it's in that video about let's talk about source. He said that's like saying you want to go back to your mother's womb.
Yeah.
And he's got a point there. He said, why would I want to go back to where I was born from? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of the way I look at it too is who knows if there is an origin point? I mean, it's kind of hard for us not to think that way. I mean, I still lean towards their likely or possibly being a like an origin point for all of us that is not from this system, but like it's like everything originally comes from there and kind of spreads out. Now, is that true? How the hell do I know? But I mean, the whole God creator source narrative here is quite pushy. And that alone should be suspect for everyone listening tonight. I mean, The fact that that is pushed so heavily, I mean, that alone is a massive red flag and takes away the sovereign directive of us kind of standing up for ourselves and doing our own thing. So to me, like, I just kind of throw my hands up in the air and say, I don't really care at this point. I don't care. Like, I'll find out, and I'm not going to rush into anything either. So,
right, yeah, we just from the most basic information we can get, kind of like piece together, sort of like this visual of the Earth and its surrounding spirit planes, if you want to call them that. And there seems to be a consistent account of some kind of outer rim area where you can actually leave the whole mechanism here. And we don't know what is out beyond that because we've been cut off, have amnesia, and therefore it's almost like being in some kind of real sci-fi movie. We're caught in like a reincarnation loop. In order to get out, you have to kind of go and do things that are counterintuitive to get out. And then, yeah, of course, we can't understand any of this stuff from our perspective here because as Rupert Sheldrake pointed out, the brain seems to be a massive reducing valve for consciousness.
So yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Phrase. So.
He never thinks about the implications of that it's really a bad thing. But as a reducing valve, we have no ability anymore in our current state as humans to even try to grasp with our imagination what the hell is non-linear time. So you're right. There could be no origin. If time doesn't even work like it does here, where it's moment to moment, you're drudging from the past into this future, and you're constantly in this present. That's how we perceive it. And then you have a lot of accounts from NDEs where they're like, time doesn't work like that there. So,
but yet they came back to a place that does have time. You know,
right.
So there's a longtime subscriber who I was talking to. His name's Lindley. He's a great, great man. And, he said, he's like, how do we know that time doesn't exist outside of here? It doesn't have to be on the level of time that we experience on Earth through the human perception. But how do we actually know that all of these individuals who are having these experiences, or even, doesn't matter whether it's an NDE or not, if you're going outside your body, you do realize quickly the difference with that, and you kind of have this assumption that time doesn't exist. But who is to say that that is actually the case? Because there's so many other lies embedded within the whole astral construct, so many other layers of BS that perhaps there is time, but on a very, very different level that we can't even conceive and comprehend how it links into here and other realms, like within this whole overall construct called the Matrix. So I that really started to get me thinking more about it, and I think it's a valid point to think about that, because we don't know. I mean, there's this mass level deception, and maybe it's very, very subtle, very, very, very subtle, and maybe there's manipulation, like being able to essentially like rewind and fast forward and hit play and insert the end ears back into the Earth realm. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, I just leave everything open when it comes to time at this point, because we really don't know, despite all of the claims.
Right. We could just have ideas, theories, even so-called scientists, which in today's day and age, you can kind of use that word loosely. Even so-called scientists have a dilemma trying to explain time.
Yep. Yeah. Good point. Good point. All right. So that was a fun discussion.
Yeah, let's keep going.
You get a lot of these conspiracy theories about negative things. You know, the evil aliens are going to come and have us for dinner, and on and on and on, all the negative stuff, because people who are negative and fearful always reach out and grab for negative, fearful things.
Yeah,
we're attracted to the negative. Look at the news. What makes news and what's newsworthy is something that hurts, where people are dying, trash, terrible things. That's news. You know, somebody had a wonderful day. That's not news. Nobody gives a damn about somebody had a wonderful day, but somebody got smushed somewhere. Wow, we want to watch that over and over again. So it's just the culture we have generates these negative attitudes, and it's just not true. But we have so many negative people who resonate with negativity, who will believe a story that's negative because they feel negative and they're unhappy and they have negative attitudes and they feel cheated and abused and, you know, the whatever.
So, I mean, really, right out, I mean, this is so disingenuous, because he assumes that we're all just negative assholes, you know, roaming around, pissed off at the world. Yeah, you know, we're you know, a lot of us are not happy with the situation, but at the same time, it's like, do you sulk on it every single second of every single day and make it like your entire existence? No, you still got to press on and make the best of your last lifetime, and find the joy, find the love, find what helps you get through the day, or those. There is still good. It's not all bad, but it's just a being able to recognize both ends of the spectrum without crapping on those that question it.
Sure. I just yeah, sure. When I was young, I was super positive about things. It took a long time for me to start to deal with the fact that there's a lot of crazy, evil people in the world. You know, I sort of had the Star Trek mentality. Humanity's moving forward so we can all get along together someday. I mean, you know,
which aligns with all the other narratives.
Yeah. They always want to give you enough hopium so you ignore the bad stuff. You know, they just want to give you that hope and promises, or you know, or don't look at that. And yeah, well, he's right. We do focus in a lot on the negative, but that's because there's so much of it. How can you not look at it? Yeah,
it's so in our face.
Yeah,
but it's just, I don't know. Like, I look at it as just being honest about what the hell's going on here. I mean, that's all. It's just being honest.
Yeah,
you
sure.
know,
Any philosophy that explains our or any cosmology, the understanding of reality, in my opinion, should be consistent so that it doesn't require ignoring information to prop it up. In this clip that you're showing, it seems to me like Campbell wants to blow off this whole Loosh account, which is very detailed in Monroe's book, and it upset him greatly. It sent him into a how many weeks where he didn't even want to go out of body anymore.
Yeah, I think it was a depression. I think it was a couple weeks, or maybe 2 months. I don't remember, something like that.
Yeah, and instead of dealing with, you know, I mean, he claimed, Monroe wrote about traveling to the outer rim where like basically like last timers were leaving this whole realm and never return. And so he witnessed that. So I just don't understand what happened to him in that time. He saw something or experienced something he didn't like. It went against his view of reality, and then he simply then gives up on his own rules, and then he says, "Oh, it's all about love."
Yeah, that's the key thing. I put that in the description, how he went against his own rules, right? And in its radio silence, Dan. I mean, it's there is just no more mention of this after the book. Tom and William Beelman are the only two individuals who have brought it up. And the one with William was, I think, earlier this year, maybe January or late last year. He posted something on his Facebook page and crapped all over it as well. But as far as Monroe employees go, Tom and William both crap on it. But the other thing I mentioned in the description is, look, the Monroe Institute opened in the early 70s. Far Journeys was written, I think it was 85. And then you have all of that time from then. So basically, Loosh comes out into the open in 1985. Tom Campbell is there witnessing it. He was allegedly there during this time period, right? And who knows? He probably was. I don't necessarily discount that, but
Yeah,
but you know, I mean, it is what it is. And so there's this whole time period, and anyone out there, please, I really am gonna let me just throw this out there to anyone listening. If you can find any other Monroe Institute employees, Tom Campbell, William Beelman, and all William Beelman did was post something on Facebook and discount it all, right, about the soul trap. Okay, and Tom has obviously done that too, but on video. Like, the only thing Mr. Beelman did was just write up a few paragraphs on it, and then there's a few others that kind of joined him, but they weren't Monroe Institute employees. No one on the board, the daughter, the family, nobody has ever brought this up, including Monroe himself, at least that we have records for, that at least we have something we can refer to. And Tom openly admits in another interview that I think it's another one, not this one, where he says that they recorded every single interaction that they had. So there are tapes out there. There are tapes of Bob Monroe and Tom and a couple other individuals, and maybe even more. I don't know. We don't know the whole situation, but there's an open admission that there are tapes out there of these discussions and the astral travels, because they were trying to relay information in between these sessions. So if all that information is out there, how come we don't have it? If you go to archive.org and look up the Monroe Institute, there is so much information there, and there's a lot of value there too. But do we have anything on Loosh? No. If you search archive.org and the Monroe archives, you will find 5 results, of which I think 2 or 3 actually have something to look at, which we'll go over one of those papers. But the point I'm trying to make is, look, Tom was there, and there are these tapes, so why can't the public listen to them? Why hasn't the Monroe Institute released any of these and allowed us to kind of make our own decision, instead of just kind of like, oh, well, it's all bullshit and that's all there is to it?
Yeah,
it just bugs me, man. Bugs me.
Let me just say that this also, especially Campbell here, who's written enormous mega volumes of books, 3 volumes that I went through. You have his friends here, right? They were friends, right? They just worked.
Yeah, I would say friends, yeah, because they were. I guess I would say friends, but I mean,
you have an incredibly, you have a very detailed OBE experience, where it's in great detail exactly what, this whole Loosh thing was about, making the garden like a farm to get it, what generates it. Okay. It's not like it's like just like some brief paragraph in his book in Far Journeys. It's a whole section. And
very detailed, like you said.
it's very detailed. It's very precise information. It's very logically laid out. He even uses, he's always careful, Monroe, to use terms that don't reflect a religion or some kind of spiritual belief. That's why he referred to the maker of the garden for Loosh as someone somewhere. It's very nondescript. He doesn't know what it is.
Yep.
Other people, depending on their religion, would say, "Oh, it was a god," or it was a kind of creator being. He doesn't really specify. Someone somewhere wanted to make more Loosh because it was very valuable. Anyway, he goes through this entire detailed explanation. Now you have Tom Campbell gets asked a question about Loosh and says it's all garbage. Did you see the problem there?
Absolutely. That's a huge issue, because it's like there's like this like the Monroe Institute and Tom and a number of others kind of fall on the backbone of Monroe, but when it comes to this one specific thing, oh no, it's completely wrong. It's BS. It's lies. And then we get accused of negative and being negative and hey, just look at the news and blah 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 blah. And well, again, I'll say to Tom, well, look at the historical record. Look at the poorly designed meat suits. I mean, it's just let's deconstruct the love narrative. Let's just be honest with one another and throw it all on the table and talk about it. But I know, I don't think Tom would ever come on and talk about it, but
right. How could how could somebody just brush off this very detailed report from Monroe when he worked in the Monroe Institute, backs up that the out-of-body experience is a real thing, and you have and then just to say, oh, well, that's all garbage. Well, how could that be?
How is it all garbage? Whoa, is there any value in there?
Yeah,
anything?
That doesn't make any sense.
But everything else is, like our Lord and Savior, Robert Monroe.
Right. But, Monroe is this genius. He's very fortunate. He was very gifted, and he also was very scientific in his narrative, explaining his OB experience. He didn't go, until that incident happens. He sticks to this true rule of, I'm just going to report what I'm experiencing as a pure witness to the information, and not try to put a spin on it. And then he sticks to that until the Loosh thing, and then he puts a spin on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just goes on and on and on, and it's just so just targeted it. It's basically like, oh, if you're looking into this, like, you're a jerk off. That's the translation.
Yeah, sure. It's like you get insulted for it. I mean, even the way he's answering the question, we'll play some more of the clip, I assume, but even in the way he's answering the guy's question, it's almost like, how dare you ask me about this nonsense?
Exactly.
How dare you?
Do you know who Howdy is? No.
No, because...
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Finish your sentence, man. No,
yeah,
because
okay. We're in sync on that one. Go ahead.
Just pick that up and run with it. suck it up. So I'm not surprised that you had a lot of viewers, but that's just our negativity of our culture, creating beliefs that make us feel what? Somebody to blame, gives us somebody to shake our fist at. It's not our fault, somebody else's fault. Oh, it's the demons. It's their fault. My life would be good except for them.
Tom, do demons exist at all?
According to
I
him.
would like to ask that question. Do demons exist at all in Tom's, research? Has there been
No.
any evidence of them existing?
No, he makes it quite clear in his research material that all that stuff is basically
It's a projection.
conjured up. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so ridiculous.
It gives you somebody to blame other than yourself. But most of our problems and all of our fears self-generated. It's not the demons that make us negative. It's us and our choices and our lack of consciousness quality.
Okay, so again, it's what is it doing? It's kind of, okay, let's just reel everything in and spit it out and drop the fear, guilt, shame matrix all up in your grill. That's what it is. It's like, oh, well, it's just you cooking up all this stuff. It has nothing to do with the realm itself, the functionality of the insanity, and the poorly designed meat suit that limits the processing power of perception and understanding. Or understanding. So when he kind of throws that out there, and as if like, oh, it's your fault, you helped create this mess and this and that. I mean, I know I'm kind of putting words in his mouth there, but that's kind of how I see it. And it just feels dirty.
Right. It's like it's about as ridiculous as like the current iteration of Call of Duty is getting a lot of flack from gamers out there. It's got some problems. Now, this would be like akin to the game maker blaming the gamers for the engineering of their game that the gamers didn't make. We're participating in this realm, but we didn't design it. And anybody wants to know all the massive problems with the human meat suit, as you call it. I talked about it in my last video. That book, "Humans Are Not from Earth," from Ellis Silver, PhD. His book, and you don't have to like take all of his conclusions. He's got his own ideas in there, which it
definitely veers off. But yeah, overall, there's value.
In the second edition, if you just take the book as a list. I mean, the book is pretty massive, but if you just go through the book for a list of everything that is designed wrong in human being versus other natural life in the earth realm here, not life that we've tampered with or interfered with, because there'd be no dogs or house cats without human intervention in the feline and canine families, but just a pure natural life out there that just exists and we never tampered with it. And you compare it to the human being, and then the amount of issues, 4,000 or 5,000 design flaws alone in his book, genetic problems, disease problems, design, the design issues with Earth's gravity here compared to our bone structure. I mean, on and on and on. Even our taste buds are screwed up.
What does he say about taste buds again?
Well, we're attracted to eat foods that aren't good for us.
Yeah. GMOs, the toxins and all that stuff.
Even just like sugary things that aren't just they cause our insulin to go out of whack. Our bones are not strong enough. And Lloyd Pye was another great guy who had that presentation he would give on the terrible design of a human being. You can still find his videos on YouTube. He passed
that's
away.
still out there. Yeah, yeah. He died what, like 10 years ago, I think. 15
Yeah, he
years
died
ago?
in 2013. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he died quite a while ago, but he had he has a great several videos on YouTube where he he has like a video presentation on just how horribly designed the human being is.
And you've done a video on that. I remember watching you talk about this.
Yeah, I mentioned it several times because I'm like, obviously, you know, I mean, the thing is that the further back you go in mythology, I think you get closer and closer to some kind of truth. And when you go as far back as you can, that would be like the Sumerians. It's in their own mythology that we were crappily designed.
Yeah. It's right there.
It's written right on their own tablets.
Right there. Yeah.
The gods were drunk.
Yeah.
They made humans that didn't work right. Too many hands, or they were too weak. They were too. Some of them were a little bit too smart, too strong. They had to be dumbed down. I mean, I pretty much assume that those myths. Then of course, you can follow the pattern how they get corrupted. They go to the Babylonians. They get altered. They go to the Akkadians. They get altered. They keep getting altered every time they get passed on to a new civilization. I assume the Sumerians also had altered myths, but the further back you go, the clearer the picture you get.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of like layer on top of layer, and then they took that information from the tablets and twisted it into some bullshit alien narrative. And you know, the mining for gold thing, all that stuff, the whole Sitchin thing tainted that information. You got to ask yourself why.
Yeah, right. There's nothing in those tablets about gold, about
Zero.
Nibiru being a planet. There's zero. All that stuff is just made up. Just like a lot of the stuff in Campbell's material. To me, it seems like he makes up some stuff out of his imagination to fill in the blanks or to explain things. There's other things in there that are valuable. I mean, it's a thing people do. Somebody witnesses an accident, and then when they report what they witnessed to the police investigating the accident, it's what they saw and their interpretation of what they saw. It's kind of all mashed together, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point with police.
Their beliefs, their worldview gets mixed in with the actual event that they witnessed, and you have to kind of try to figure out where does the actual event stop and where does their imagination of things begin.
Exactly. Yeah, and we just are totally in the dark. Are you able to hit play on the video by any chance?
Can I hit play?
Yeah, are you able to?
I don't know. Let me see. No.
Okay. That sucks.
I can't do anything.
So all of that is just negativity on steroids, feeding more negativity, fear feeding fear. And
That's all
that
it is.
goes and will continue to go until people get depressed, till people become, clinically depressed. I don't want to live here anymore. It's so negative and it's so awful. I can't stand to be here. And yes, suicide rates are high, and that's part of the reason. Suicide happens when people can see very little positive and everything is negative. So it's our...
Yeah, I mean, I think with that thought process, it's just everything about the conversation is about kind of talking down on everybody, right? It's like there could be all sorts of reasons someone is depressed, and again, we can go right back to the human meat suit and the environment and everything that's set up in a certain way to make those situations thrive. But you know, just kind of to put this out there, I know I've talked about it a lot, and Dan's mentioned it too. You know, suicide's not the answer. It's you don't want to end up kind of on the hook for something, right? Depending on what these agreements are all about when we're coming in with each incarnation, who knows? And then there's like the whole emotional component to everything. It's just like, write out the life script as best you can, enjoy your last time here, but don't by any means take your life. Because sometimes the whole suicide cult thing is compared with what we talk about, and that is not at all what is being discussed here. It's just about looking with honesty and an open mind about what this place is all about, what the whole human experience is about.
Yes, actually, you know, our time here is very short anyway, and you have to it take decades to unbrainwash yourself. You don't know what's buried in your subconscious. Every moment counts. The longer you can actually stay here, the more of a chance you have at getting more and more information, cleaning out your subconscious mind of traps. There is a episode. It doesn't have to do with anything like about reincarnation or anything or death. Actually, well, it does, but there's an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation in the 5th season called "Cause and Effect," and it's one of those time loop episodes. Where, you know, everybody at the Enterprise gets destroyed, everybody dies, and then they get reset backwards. It's like kind of like a bad Groundhog Day thing.
Okay.
And each time they try to figure out what the heck's going on, they figure out a little bit more until finally they're able to escape the loop.
I think that's a perfect comparison to probably what we go through. What do you think?
Exactly. To me, it was like, yeah, you could apply this to just about anything. You know, each time they went through the loop, what was weird, there was another ship involved that was also caught in the loop, but that one, they didn't figure anything out. And when the Enterprise crew broke the time loop, the other ship that they kept seeing and toward the end of when everything would get destroyed and that reset, was another Federation ship that had been caught in that same time loop for 90 years. They were repeating the same day, and they never broke free of it. And meanwhile, the Enterprise did it in 17 days. And they did it because they kept learning more and more information. They kept trying to they knew there was like an echo, and they would try to feed themselves information into the next loop until they figured it out. It's a very interesting episode, but it's just the premise is though that every second counts, and every time you learn something new, it gets you closer to breaking our loop, which is a reincarnation loop. If you enter the whole process without being as prepared as possible, there's a very good chance you'll screw it up and end up back here.
Yeah, no, really, really well said. There's some good conversations going on in the chat right now about, you know, the whole thing that we dealt with over the last few years and his stance on that. And that's something I noticed too, but unfortunately can't really expand upon that, but you can use your imagination. It's not that hard to figure out. And I even saw Buddhist sects. I saw all sorts of OBE groups, astral projection groups, whatever you want to call it or classify them under. A bunch of different individuals and groups kind of towing the line for what happened, over the last
Yeah.
couple of years and endorsing it fully. There was this whole unison on it. And the interesting thing is when you kind of start digging into the individuals that are kind of relaying those messages, you start to see sometimes loose connections to the control system, but a lot of times you see blatant connections to the system. And the world of disinformation, the world of misdirection, the world of trying to get and convince you to do certain things and to think a certain way is massive. It's beyond any of our comprehension. So kind of, I saw that in the chat. Just wanted to touch on that a little bit. I mean, they rolled out every single stop across the board for that whole thing.
Oh yes, and now there's a lot of gaslighting going on.
Oh, it's insane amounts of
obviously
gaslighting.
we can't go into details, but
No, unfortunately not.
There's a lot of, oh, we never did that.
No. I want to give a big thank to UWU for the kind super chat. I will get to your question after the first break, which we're coming up on soon, because we stretched this one out a lot, but there's a lot to say. I mean, I really want to go over this clip again too at some point, but so let's just kind of move on. I know he's got a few more things to say, and then we'll probably take a short break.
Our culture, we respond to, we make books, we make movies, we make stories, all about horrible, negative things, negative people, terrible people that abuse everybody else. And we get fed a constant diet of that. So when somebody says, oh, the demons are after us and this is going to happen and that's going to happen and the whole thing's a big trap and we're all in jail, prison planet, then a lot of people will say, yeah, that feels right. I feel like, somebody's keeping me down, rather than saying, well, it's my responsibility to grow up. It's all about me and the choices I make.
So there goes the whole, we're right back to the beginning with the learning experience, how we're supposed to grow and this and that. Oh, I mean, it's really, I don't know.
Again,
it's just,
how do you grow with amnesia?
Boom.
Every time you're reborn?
Boom.
It's the most ludicrous theory of reality of, when you break it down. It's insane. It's an insane thing. There's so many insane theories. Look, none of these religions get it right. Obviously, they're like politics and dogmas and doctrines they're throwing at you. And then all of these other people that have broken away from religion, they've just generated their own dogmas and doctrines. I don't have any dogmas or doctrines. I'm not going to tell you that, oh, it has to be this way, or this is the only way out.
Yeah.
My theory is you have to assert your individuality. You have to assert your sovereignty and yourself and your being and your rights. And then with your intention, because you don't need a car or an airplane to get there, you exit the system.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, we were talking in a voice chat, talking with a few people in a voice chat last night, and I think it's going to be the simplest thing ever to leave here. I do. I think all you need to do, I mean, once you have left your body and realized your power, or at least kind of seen that power exists on a mass scale for all of us, that intention is key. There's a lot of value, there's a lot of comfort in that, in knowing that you can call the shots. Now think about, and this kind of goes back to what we were mentioning earlier about researching this topic on your own, going out, doing the work, and seeing the mechanics of the system, and kind of coming to that firm inner knowing that, okay, I am self-empowered now. I am going to be the king or queen of my own castle and liberate myself on my own terms. And think about it, like that type of thing building up day in and day out, year in and year out. Why would the system think for a minute that it has a right to interfere or mess with us? And then you can even go one step further and say, well, I don't know. Like if put yourself in the system's shoes. If you're like the chief parasite or part of the control system, the deception system going on in this whole overall matrix, then would you want, I mean, I know if I was running the place, I wouldn't want Dan running around here. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't. I mean, it's risk versus reward. It's common sense. I don't want you running around my realm if I'm some chief parasite, Dan.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah.
That's why we don't get a lot of traction compared to some of these other people. I mean, everybody knows who Campbell is. Everybody knows who a lot of these people are. They're all over the place. They even end up on TV shows at times. You're not gonna. I'm pretty sure you're never gonna see me on a TV show.
No.
We got our little channels here. We have to watch how we say things, and Odyssey is obviously better, but we're still. It's the way the tech works. It's just so easy to pump out a video for YouTube and have it repopulate everywhere else automatically.
Exactly.
The thing is that if we ever got to a certain level, I think it would probably somehow they'd find a way to cut us off.
Sure. Yeah. The other thing I think they try to do for those that, especially anyone who's kind of like on the fence or doubting themselves or thinking that this system has any control over you or anyone, let's say. First off, it doesn't, but what it may try to do, and I'm convinced that it probably would try this, especially for anyone that's kind of reached this point, but still like doubts their inner self, their inner power in this whole situation about who and what they are and what they're capable of. I think what the system would do would be like, they would throw a party, right? I mean, we've seen NDEs where someone walks in and it's like a full stadium and they're all cheering them on. I mean, that's like boosting the ego, right? So what if it was something similar to that, but instead with this situation, they would be like, oh, good job. You're promoted. Now you can, instead of reincarnating every 20, 30 years in between a lifetime or 10 years, it's maybe like 200, 300, 400 years, or maybe not at all. But because you've made it this far, because you've realized kind of the BS of this realm, if they could kind of sneak and weasel their way in, then why not kind of act like there's this big promotion opportunity, right? It's like, oh, we need you. Like you graduated, you finished the Earth realm experience, but now what we can do is have you be you're basically running entity interference for those that are back on Earth, or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's some other realm or something. So they can feed the ego in certain ways. And I think doubt is the worst thing anyone can kind of come into with this information. If there's no self-empowerment and realization of sovereignty, then it could potentially be an open door, and you don't want to have open doors. You want to be just like unrelenting with pure path and the sovereign path. That's kind of just my thoughts on it.
Sure. You did a video, I think it's on your YouTube homepage, where you go over all the subconscious sabotage, hypnagogic state from 0 to 7 years old, all that stuff. I mean, right there in that one video, you show how we're just born, and then it's designed to put garbage in, so garbage comes out.
Yep. Yeah, the early childhood development.
Yeah, it's literally garbage in, garbage out. And that's why, I mean, it's perfectly designed if you wanted to create a world where these beings with a bit of God code in them can generate Loosh, because you need them to constantly be in conflict and be kind of insane.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean the whole early childhood development is a massive red flag in and of itself. The fact that you and I and everyone listening here can come into this world, and that we have to be reliant on someone else to feed us, to bathe us, to change our diapers, to teach us, help teach us a language and feed us and all that stuff. Otherwise, you would be dead. Like there's no way around it. A mother cannot have a kid and throw the child on the sidewalk, and the child's going to survive without some sort of help with another human. Meanwhile, almost every single other species in the realm can, most of the time, get away with something like that, right? Theoretically, an animal could abandon its child and it can be all right. It can most of the time figure itself out and survive. But the human baby is not capable of that. And then what's happening is the intergenerational indoctrination that carries over, generation after generation. So because of the familiarity within the system, because all of the stuff that's been crammed down your throat from when you were a child and you grew up within the system, that's conveniently passed down to your child. And then there's this convenient buffer zone from birth to age 6, 7, right around there. And everything kind of just molds itself together to create the you that will most likely be a good slave for the system until death.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Everybody. Just, how many decades did it take me? All I had was a faint instinct that something wasn't right. Who knows why I even had it? Why was I more resistant to brainwashing? And I still got brainwashed anyway, but why was I more able to question it myself? And others, some people can't seem to question anything. I don't know why that is. Is it, is it just the astrology of the whole thing? The imprint when you're born, the certain traits that your avatar gets? Some people have more an advantage than others. I mean, do they need to, let some out to keep a certain balance here?
See, that's all great questions.
Is it required so that the system needs to have a way for people to win the game? Otherwise, it would be a complete violation of natural law.
Yep, that's definitely something that's a possibility on the table. I think it could also be subconsciously, like deep within us, that we've been here enough times that we, the gig is up. Perhaps there's only, depending of course upon like the you inside of you. If you've been here, let's just say a couple hundred lifetimes, couple thousand lifetimes, whatever the case may be, like the one thing I like to put forward is like they cannot ever fully contain our essence. they just can't do it. It might seem like they can, but they can't. So things kind of leak through, whether it's subconsciously or kind of like this deep inner knowing or realization that we come to while kind of on our path. It might not happen when we're children or young adults, but at some point, I think we start questioning this whole experience more and more, lifetime after lifetime. And then kind of there's like reach a tipping point, and they can insert themselves. They can throw all the distractions, all the crazy, wacky life scripts, all the suffering they want. But at the end of the day, it's up to us. And there's just some things that they can never fully contain. And yeah, they can contain a lot, but I still think it's a slippery slope, and they know that. They know it damn well. And will make sure to try and weasel their way in any way possible to keep you hanging on and get memory wiped for just one more lifetime. But eventually there's that tipping point, and I think that's where many of us are.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, I'm going to have to let you finish the rest.
Sure.
I'm getting very tired.
It's getting pretty late here, yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, I love being a guest on your show. I appreciate you inviting me on here. I really am happy you're getting some traction on your channel. I try to promote it whenever I can, and
Thanks, brother.
there's not too many of us out here. With we have some of our subscribers know what's going on, and that's great. Just everybody just keep doing your own research. The more you repeat this stuff, the more it gets into your subconscious, and the more you purge out your programming, the garbage in that was given to you and then birth and so forth. And the longer you keep doing that, the better shot I think we all have of getting out of here.
For sure. I really, really appreciate you kind of closing with that. And thanks, Dan, for coming on. And I know it was kind of a late night, but appreciate it. Really do.
It was kind of last minute, but I'm happy to do it anytime I can. So I'll see you guys next time.
All right, brother. You sleep well.
Thanks. I'll catch. I want to. Obviously, I will catch the rest of this tomorrow, and I'll watch it from this point on.
All right, man. Take care of yourself. Sleep well.
See you. Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, so just gonna throw this up really quickly, just to kind of make it easier for timestamps. So I'm gonna finish the clip here, and then I may kind of play it through again, because there's just so much to unpack in it, and but we'll see, because I'm gonna take a break soon as well. But really appreciate everyone sticking with us tonight. I know we kind of we were going in deep with these conversations, and there's just, I mean, he only talked about maybe 5 minutes about this, and I'll just leave it alone. All right, let's continue.
And if I make positive choices and have a positive outlook, I'll create a positive life for myself. Things will work. It's so much easier to be negative than it is to be positive. Being negative is like giving up and not caring. Being positive is having to get out there and be useful and helpful.
So, Tom, what is negative, right? What is negative? Just looking at something like, so for instance, like if I grew up in North Korea and in the slums and had Kim Jong-un dropping the hammer down on me and his family and all the minions related to the system, would me being upset with that or not happy about that situation be inherently negative? But what about when the shoe's on the other foot, when, yeah, you have all the modern conveniences, such as a home and air conditioning and heat and water and a toilet and a shower and food on the table. And what happens to that individual, us, who can understand how fortunate we are, but also at the same time empathize for those who are in North Korea or those who are in extreme suffering situations, right? What about that? Is that inherently negative to show compassion and empathy? I mean, yeah, the news is full of shit. It throws up a bunch of negativity, but at the same time, there is real suffering in this world, and just because someone cares and questions the authenticity of this realm and the human body and the whole human experience, does that mean that they are inherently negative because they are just looking at what's in front of them and weighing both sides, the good and the bad? See, I don't think so, Tom. I don't. And like, you kind of like to paint this broad brush on all of us because we want to question. All we want to do is question and put this system, you know, put the feet to the fire in this of the system. That's it. It just blows my mind. Does that mean you sulk in it and make it your, you know, last will and testament like every single day? No, you just acknowledge that it exists, and you try to look at like what you say. Oh, it's all about love and this and that. You can look at it and realize point blank that no, it's not all about love. Because the poor child who's born into North Korea out in the rice paddies, you know, they grew up in the slums of North Korea where the system doesn't even take care of them, because remember, all they do is help those who are in Pyongyang, and everyone outside of that is basically a nothing. But yet they still have to perform and provide for the system within North Korea. And that's just one example. And then we can go down all sorts of atrocities. So my question is when do we be honest? When do we see the good and the bad? But also, I know I keep repeating myself, but concentrating and realizing the inherent flaws of the human body, the human design, the human psyche, the degradation of the body over time, the manipulation, like Dan was mentioning when we were talking about early childhood development. What about that, Tom? What about how everything is like just so happens to be set up in certain phases so that this system thrives, so that the scam is not revealed
and caring to other people. So one's easy, the other's more difficult. People tend to take the easy route there. It's just not so.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I so much appreciate you doing this interview with me today. You know, I got to have you back on sometime, maybe later this year.
It's just not so. So with that, going to take a about 5-minute break. There's a second video I want to go over. I mean, I don't know. It just it really rubs me the wrong way how he approached all this, how he just kind of openly, you know, lumped us in with you know, what the system would deem as quote unquote crazy and this and that. God forbid we all sit here and ask questions and go up against my big toe. God forbid, Tom. Yeah, I mean, like the pompousness is it's just incredible. many of us could sit here and openly say that we don't know everything that's going on. We have theories, and there's a lot of information to suggest certain things. But at the end of the day, I think many, if not all of us, can sit here and openly admit that the more you learn about what's happening here and what this system's all about, and what the astral realms are all about and the layers involved with all that, when you kind of come face to face with both those things, you realize how less and less you know. There are certain things that, yes, I can sit here and be confident about and say to you, and Dan can say, and Wayne can say, and we can feel pretty confident about it. But at the end of the day, all the nooks and crannies and how this whole thing works, we don't know. Nobody knows. And I certainly wouldn't be pompous enough to kind of imply, or not even imply, but kind of shove down other individuals' throats that, my big toe is the lay of the land. And anyone who questions it, or anyone who questions the topic of Loosh, remember, Bob Monroe is Saint Bob. Almost everything else he does is flawless. For some reason, the whole Loosh narrative, well, he was completely wrong. Well, he can't be some apparent godly figure and know it all if you're going to discount a major and very, very detailed part of his book. I mean, again, the radio silence, like I mentioned in the description, the radio silence in the whole anything related to this Loosh topic is incredible. It speaks volumes that this topic has not even been addressed by anyone, like I guess what we'll say, the boardroom of the Monroe Institute. Since it's come out, there's no other information that Bob put out, or at least was allowed to put out this entire time. That should be suspect in and of itself. Because you'd think there would be multiple clarifications, follow-ups, this and that. But what do we see in the books? We see him going against his own investigative method. He starts off by telling us an investigative method that he's working with, and then explains what he experienced, what he saw. He's upset about it, and then boom, twists it and goes against his own process. Anyways, kind of a little ranty, but so we're going to just take about a 5-6 minute break and I'll be back shortly. Thank you for your patience. More to come. Okay, my friends. Thank you for your patience. Welcome back. Just as a reminder, this channel is for educational or perhaps entertainment purposes only. At least in the eyes of the law. So we're going to move on to the second video of Tom Campbell talking about Bob Monroe and a little bit about the Loosh factor. I think the Loosh aspect to this existence that we all find ourselves in is not just mildly possible, but I mean, it's all around us. It doesn't matter whether a human or a fish. I mean, the suffering is there, right? And you got to remember that Loosh is both ends of the spectrum. It's not just negativity and suffering, but it's also joy and happiness and love and all that. So it's taking the duality. Remember, since we're in this duality, we have both swings. And if the high refined Loosh exists because of both ends of those spectrums, with which clearly negativity and all this type of stuff that like is consistently perceived by us, whether we believe it or not, or like you get an injury, you get into a car crash, whatever the case may be, all this stuff, it seems to point with the overall system that basically what we're dealing with is it really seems to get off on the negativity, right? The negative aspect to all this. Thanks, Tommy. I appreciate that. Thank you for dropping Dan's website. And just as a reminder, Dan's website is OverWatchProject.com. And there's also links to his Odyssey account. And I believe his website is Odyssey, and YouTube accounts are all in the description tab. So feel free to check those out and head on over and subscribe. And if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting the bell and select all, because unfortunately notifications don't always go out. There's also 2 YouTube backup channels, so they're kind of just parked there. I'm not gonna bug you with incessant notifications. They've just been sitting there, but you never know in this day and age, so please consider subscribing to the backup channels and hitting the bell for all. And then there's Odyssey and Rumble as alternative platforms, as well as Twitch. My personal preference is Odyssey, but I'm also starting to like Rumble a little bit more too. I think they're finally adding some good features that are necessary. And I have a Twitter, and Instagram, and Facebook where I just kind of send out notifications prior to the stream. And then there are memberships available both here on YouTube and Odyssey if you'd like some extra content each month. Feel free to check that out. Your support is always appreciated, but never expected. And yeah, so I think that's everything. Oh yeah, the email list. Please consider signing up for the email list. It's one of the only things I truly control at the end of the day, because you're at the whim of all these platforms. And so, the mailing list is a good way for us to stay in touch just in case something should happen. And yeah, so feel free to sign up for that. I promise not to ever sell your information. It will always be safe with me. And to date, I've had the mailing list up there for, I don't know, 8 months, and I still haven't sent one email. So it's kind of just parked there again, just as a thing to have, just in case something should happen. And the last thing I'll just remind anyone in the Last Timers Club on Odyssey or YouTube, our monthly members live stream together will be Sunday, May 28th at around 7 or 7:30 p.m. Eastern. More information's coming on that soon. So let's get into round 2. Okay, so get rid of that. Okay, so this is an interview that he did with someone who goes out of body fairly regularly. So here we go.
Even a half an hour talk, it's really challenging. It's very challenging to do more than just make statements. And that leaves me feeling kind of, I just don't feel like I've really justified it for people.
But I can tell why, maybe, and we can start from there. And Bob Monroe, I'm going to call him Bob because you call him Bob. And for me, he was always Robert. And for you is Bob. So I'm going to use that because every time you mention him in your interviews and your work, you always say Bob. And maybe Bob loved working with you because your brain and the way that you stepped into the world of, I don't know, remote viewing and astral projection and out of body experiencing, it was probably very analytical and all encompassing. What was his, and I want to try and find questions that you don't often answer because you're not getting asked those questions. What did Bob love about working with you the most?
Well, I think the thing that Bob liked about me was that I never came with any preconceived notions or beliefs about anything. I remember when he had the experience, and he wrote about it, I don't know, second book, third book, I'm not sure, but it was the thing about the Loosh. And, he had this idea that there were other beings at a higher level than us that were growing or becoming or whatever, and they needed a product that we were making, and he called it Loosh. And we talked about it, and looking back on it, I can see he really had a misunderstanding here. He didn't really interpret this quite correctly, but from his interpretation, it almost.
Okay, so as you can kind of see, the questions kind of like, oh, let's hear about Bob Monroe and what he valued in you. And well, it goes to Tom basically looking at Loosh and giving his quote unquote opinion about what he thought about all this. And that, this is of all the things Tom would choose, it just so happens to be the Loosh aspect. Isn't that interesting?
Sounded like we were farm animals providing these higher beings a commodity. Mm-hmm. And he was very, I don't know, he was a little shaken by that concept.
Think?
And he took me aside one evening after we had been working, and he said, I want to tell you about this thing that and so he started telling me about this Loosh thing. And like I said, he was a little shaken up by the idea. He didn't like it, the idea that, oh, we humans, what? We're just farm animals, I
wouldn't like that either.
For some other thing.
Yeah.
And he told it to me in a lot of detail. And so afterwards he said, well, what do you think? And basically I said, well, that's interesting. So we just went on talking about it, but he looked at me like, does this not bother you? And I said, no, it doesn't bother me. If it's a fact, it's a fact. So we deal with it. If it's not a fact, then it is a wrong interpretation. Well, then we work on that too. But
I don't know. Look, anyone who runs across this topic, and regardless of, whatever you're looking into, it is extremely disturbing. I don't know about you guys, but I fought this whole soul trap thing tooth and nail before I even picked up and signed online and talked about it. I battled with myself for a number of years before coming to the realization that yes, it's in my opinion completely true, right? But it was disturbing because of how much it made sense. And then as information started to flow in more and more, I started looking more and more topics and how this kind of whole thing feeds into the same system. A lot of what we talked about with Dan in the first segment can kind of go there, along with over 20 plus different other topics and subtopics that relate to one another and funnel in to show the mass deception of this whole thing. It really, did not sit well whatsoever. So for me, for Tom, unless, he's a cyborg or something, for him to say, oh, well, Bob, if it's true, we'll deal with it. We'll just deal with it. Everything will be hunky dory and, we'll be all right. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. Like, we all will be all right because we'll take our intention and apply it properly to liberate ourselves. But still, imagine first hearing this concept from Bob Monroe, someone that, you've worked with, that you respect. He's got a freaking institute named after him. And this information comes to light in what, like the early 80s, maybe? After the Monroe Institute's been up and running for 7-8 years, somewhere around there. Don't quote me on the exact number, but somewhere around there. And you hear that, and the first response is like, oh, well, if it's true, we'll deal with it. We'll check it out. Are you kidding me? Like, there's no kind of emotional reaction there, Tom? There's no kind of cognitive dissonance setting in that, like, you want to protect your point of view about what life is and all this other stuff. And instead, it's just like, oh, well, let's just check it out. Everything, if it's true, then we'll deal with it. That's just weird. It's just weird. I know if I was there, I'd be like, damn, Bob. I was like, are you sure? Like let's look into this more. Let's look at the big picture. It's just weird, guys. It's really weird.
And so he started telling me about this Loosh thing. And like I said, he was a little shaken up by the idea. He didn't like it, the idea that, we humans, we're just farm animals,
I wouldn't like that either.
For some other thing.
You think?
Yeah.
And he told it to me in a lot of detail. And so afterwards he said, well, what do you think? And basically I said, well, that's interesting. So, we just went on talking about it, but he looked at me like, does this not bother you? And I said, no, it doesn't bother me. If it's a fact, it's a fact. So we deal with it. If it's not a fact, then it is a wrong interpretation. Well, then we work on that too. But
it doesn't bother him. It doesn't bother him. We'll just deal with it. That is such a weird response.
What's to be bothered about?
But you're a scientist. I think
What's
that's why
to be
he was
bothered?
working with you. You were relying on science and physicists, and there's something about you that allows for no emotion when you are approaching an idea that you want to see. Let's experiment. Let's find out. What did you think? What do you think? Who do you think these beings are? Who is out there that we are interacting with?
Okay, well, what Bob got and what he misinterpreted, he got, well, there is this higher order
what he misinterpreted. So what he misinterpreted. And then he kind of leads into, oh, well, there's this higher order. Misinterpreted. But see, like, then Campbell kind of comes back around and does the, the collective unconscious or the collective conscious or the creator being hive mind type of direction. And so many words.
That you want to see. Let's experiment. Let's find out. What did you think? What do you think? Who do you think these beings are? Who is out there that we are interacting with?
Okay, well, what Bob got and what he misinterpreted, he got, well, there is this higher order being, if you like, beings, and they do very much evolve and grow as we evolve and grow. But it's not that we're cattle being farmed for our loosh. We're all consciousness. These higher level beings.
Okay, so if you're listening to what Tom is saying, and my translation would be like, okay, so you're explaining that other beings are also being scammed. I mean, is anyone else thinking that's what he's saying? Because that's what it seems like. Let me just back it up just a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm using a crappy video player tonight, but
well, there is this higher order being, if you like, beings,
eyes,
and they do very much evolve and grow as we evolve and grow. But it's not that we're cattle being farmed for our loosh. We're all consciousness.
So again, is he saying that those who are involved and evolving themselves are openly admitting to that? Meanwhile, here we are, we're all kind of experiencing this quote unquote evolution spiritually that's kind of rooted in love. But yet, if those who are kind of in the upper pecking order, so to say, are discussing this with Bob or you or me or whoever, then doesn't that kind of beg the question that like there's still this continued blind faith, this blind trust that this is all for your spiritual evolution and love. And that just dies on the vine.
These higher level beings, that's consciousness. That's what I call the larger consciousness system. Mm-hmm. And that we in the system are all evolving together. And as we evolve, of course, it evolves too, because we're it. It's us. We're all part of this one system. So it was talking about us evolving, growing up, becoming love. And by doing that, we and the system all evolve and lower our entropy, mm-hmm. become love together. And that was the idea he got. But he couldn't put that into the right context. In his mind, the way he parsed that out was, oh, they're these higher beings, and they're getting something good because of us. And immediately he put that into a farm context, like we're the cattle and they're the owners, and we're just being used to make loosh. And
we are them. We are them.
Yeah,
that's the way you're seeing it, right?
Oh, the we are them is just infuriating. We are them. This goes to the assumption that we are all one and that, look, I think the we are all one thing, I think when you look at it in in terms of the matrix, right? If you have a large group or groups of individuals who are still stuck within the overall system of deception, let's just call it the matrix, then, and you make them feel like they are part of this hive mind, this collective, and this and that, then if realization and information is not kind of realized, I guess, beforehand, you know, in between lives, or before you kind of die at whatever incarnation you're at, or while you're in the astral, then something's off about that, right? Like, I'm not discounting that the we are all one or root from some source is accurate or not, because I have no freaking clue. Like we were talking about with Dan earlier, I have no clue. Nobody has any clue. A lot of individuals like to make big bolsterous claims, but I think the best way to look at it is, well, you know, we'll find out, but you know, before I find out, I'm going to protect my ass. That's it.
Yeah, right. And that just wasn't what he was being told. But you see, everybody gets a data stream, and then they have to interpret it based on their own understanding and their own ideas, their own history. Well, Bob grew up on a farm. He came out of a Midwest farm.
Okay, and notice how he said everyone gets their own data stream. Yeah, their own life script. Their own data stream. That means that, you know, a certain set of things are supposed to occur. Of course, you know, you have to factor in free will in all this, and how you can divert from your life script, or go from, you know, life script set A to B or C or D, however many there are. And then, of course, you can override all of them with your own intention once self-realization occurs. But he's kind of openly admitting the hierarchy, while at the same time crapping on it like he did in that, you know, well, in part of this video. I mean, it's just...
And, you know, that just rang a bell for him, and that's the way he interpreted it. And that interpretation sounds very sinister. Oh, we're being used, you know, some kind of dark forces are using us, but that's not it at all.
No.
It's all very positive. We and the larger conscious system are all one thing. We're all part of something, and we're all evolving together. And yes, there's the part of what I call individuated units of consciousness, like you and I. Mm-hmm. And then there's the parts that's the operating system, you know, management, that part of the system that sees bigger pictures, that produces virtual realities for us to play in.
You mean the deception system? You know, the system that created this mess, that created limited consciousness, that limited or basically stomped and thwarted the getting to self-realization, that type of thing, Tom?
And other things, but we're all evolving together, and it's all positive, and it's all a very good thing. So
it's all positive, and it's all a very good thing. It's all positive, and it's all a very good thing. You guys hearing this shit? Christ. Does anyone have a one of those lunch bags so I can just like blow into it and, and inhale and exhale? What the?
So, you know, he just got it wrong because his
he just got it
farming
wrong.
Background led him into that conclusion. And he, at that point, wasn't aware that basically what we see is information, that we all get data streams. None of that was in Bob's understanding. His understanding was, well, I find myself out of body, I explore it, and the things that I explore are out there. So he kind of saw it as another reality where he'd go to his park and there's a park out there, and he didn't see it as information or data or virtual reality or any of those other perspectives. Once you have that bigger perspective, then of course it all falls together and makes a lot more sense.
So let me ask you this, Tom. If Bob was missing all this information, then isn't that kind of an unfair playing field for him? The only reason, if we are going to go with your logic, is that, well, come 20, 30, 40, whatever, however, let's just say 20 years later, the internet age appears, all sorts of information and data starts coming out about all sorts of different things. Doesn't matter what it is. Are we supposed to say that because Bob had that experience and relayed it back to you and others, and even went as far as to write it in a book, that we should discount it because he didn't have certain information? Now, one of the things I've talked about a number of times on this channel is that I don't think it matters what time period you grow up in. I think what matters the most is how you are interpreting your experience in this specific epoch, in this specific lifetime. So how you and I experience reality, yes, it may be different, but at the same time, just because there is missing information doesn't mean that you can't connect with your essence and have some sort of massive self-realization moment and adjust accordingly and reveal the truths of the BS of this realm. You could be, and in my opinion, you can be a caveman in the middle of nowhere, but because your life is going a certain way, because you have certain realizations along your path throughout this specific lifetime, you may come to the realization that this whole thing is one big scam. Or you may not. And just go and club the deer in the middle of the forest and bring it back home and feed the family. I don't know. But I don't, look, I've said a number of times how lucky we are that we do have access to so much information. But at the same time, gotta be careful here. But at the same time, we come here in these certain periods that can negatively impact or thwart our progress to get to the point of self-realization. But that also doesn't mean that we're going to take it away from the cavemen who figure it out on their own in some other way, or the Zen Buddhist monk that plants their ass up in a cottage in the Himalayas. I mean, I think the opportunity is there for all of us. It's just a matter of seeing through it. It's just a matter of us connecting with our essence, not just kind of within this lifetime, but some sort of inner knowing that we tap into from previous lifetimes, previous suffering. And that's another thing. Why don't we kind of expand on that a little bit, Tom? Because how about how this thing with suffering, like phobias. Now, this is a fact, Tom, and I'm sure you're aware of this. Hypnotists talk about how past life trauma or even current life trauma from either childhood or however many lifetimes back, those things tend to carry over. That is baggage, right? But it negatively affects us. And a lot of times we don't even know why. And these could be from the most logical fears or the most asinine fears. You can be afraid of a daddy long legs, right? But why are you afraid of a daddy long legs? Because you probably got your ass stung by some other spider that resembled it. Or if you're afraid of heights, maybe you got pushed off a cliff. Maybe you jumped off a cliff in a previous epoch and did have a parachute, but the parachute didn't deploy. Maybe you drowned and you have this innate fear of swimming. And hypnotists, time and time again, will explain how those things play a role and how you can remove them. I'm not going to say all the time, but a good percentage of the time. Depends about your involvement and realizing that it's possible. But why are those things carried over? Why? Those things are inherent roadblocks that the system sets up. So I think it's important to ask these types of questions, because instead of kind of pigeonholing yourself into this one kind of my big toe thing, you can kind of look at it and say, okay, well, maybe this does make sense, and let me just look a little further. You know, the phobias, the fears, all this stuff, how it comes and cycles into this lifetime of ours when it has absolutely nothing to do with this lifetime. But in a previous lifetime, it was traumatic and horrible. Why, Tom? Why is that? It's proven. It's proven. It's a fact that this occurs. Now, not everyone is aware of it, but you know, all these hypnotists aren't lying. They're not all making things up. And yet we're supposed to kind of go back to the whole crux of the matter and say that we're here to learn and that everything's about love. It doesn't make sense, Tom. It just doesn't. And you seem to frame people as, you know, you use narratives that daddy government uses. And just shoot us down for asking questions. Well, you know, that's just low. Just low, Tom. So, you know, I can join and be low too. We can all be low together. To point out the holes in your story, in your research, just like you can do to us.
And the out-of-body experience, the remote viewing are all in my interpretation of them and my own experiencing of them and research and studying. I believe they're all part of our experience. I would love for you to share, if you would like, an out-of-body experience that you had that deeply impacted your life.
Well, there's probably one in particular that I would, you know, when you ask that question, that would jump out at me. And it's one I do mention in the book. And that was an out-of-body experience that myself and Dennis Menerick had together. So it wasn't just my experience, but it was a joint experience. And it was a test, or I shouldn't say a test, but it was an experiment that Bob thought up. And we came to the lab that evening, and Bob gave us instructions. He says, when you go out, I want the two of you get out of your body, but meet above the lab. And when you meet, stay together. Just have that intention to stay together. And other than that, go explore, do things, evidential things. So Dennis and I just did it. And we met up above the lab, and we stayed together, and we went places, and we saw things. We had conversations with other entities. You know, it wasn't like oh, okay, we did it, but we just sat in a gray cloud the whole time. Well, there's no evidence in that, but we did a lot of things, and it was at least an hour and a half, probably more like 2 hours worth of an adventure. And we come back after that, and Bob, of course, has an audio tape of everything I said and a separate audio tape of everything that Dennis said, because that's the way we worked. We had a microphone dangling from the ceiling about a half an inch from our lips, and we would tell Bob what.
So you see, like what we were talking about earlier with Dan, how these things are recorded. Tom, how about you cough up all the tapes? Or the Monroe Institute, how about you cough up all of the tapes where Loosh is discussed? Because for some reason, there's all this other information about Bob and his experiences and the Institute, paper after paper, audio after audio, video after video. All this stuff is out there. But for some reason, the only thing missing is our discussions about Loosh. Why is that? Why? If there's nothing to worry about, if, Bob just, is completely wrong and it's ridiculous, well, then let's hear it from Bob's voice. Let's hear these progressive conversations that occurred. Because you did it all the time. These things were recorded constantly. So let's just see what's out there. Come on, Tom. Let's see it, my friend. There are many of us who would like to see it. It would give more credence and backing to what you're talking about. So it can't hurt, right? Let's hear him. Release the tape. Hashtag release the tapes.
And we come back after that. And Bob, of course, has an audio tape of everything I said and a separate audio tape of everything that Dennis said, because that's the way we worked. We had a microphone dangling from the ceiling about a half an inch from our lips, and we would tell Bob what we were experiencing as we experienced it.
Wow.
While we were out. So we were out of body, but our bodies were talking. So it was a little parallel processing, but he taught us to do that from the very beginning. Matter of fact, that was part of his methods, that we would do that, because otherwise he couldn't help us. He wouldn't know what was going on in our heads. So he couldn't actually give us much instruction. So that's how we learned to do it. So Dennis and I were there was 3 booths in that little house, and I was in booth 1. There was booth 2 between us, and Dennis was in booth 3. My booth, all the booths were acoustically isolated from one to the other. I mean, if you screamed in one, you would have heard a little muffled something in the other, but any kind of normal, even loud talking, just you wouldn't hear at all. And my booth, besides being acoustically isolated, was also electromagnetically isolated, had solid metal walls that were grounded.
Wow.
Which is something Bob did just on a whim to see whether that made any difference. So we were just talking at a very low voice, as you might imagine, with the mic hanging over.
Notice how he doesn't elaborate on that. Information that may be helpful. Maybe he talks about it later, but, it's like, you set up a soundproof. Look, there is information out there like that. There's potential Faraday cages and isolation booths. You can't hear anything outside at the Monroe Institute if you're, they have these booths lined up and you can't hear one another, blah, 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 blah. But maybe Bob popping the grounding wire and having this whole setup is helpful. And the one thing that I know for a fact is helpful is I hate to use this term, but it's called pyramid power, right? You can have there's something about the shape of the pyramid in this realm that can heighten meditations. It can help with lucid dreaming and astral projection practice. I bought one on a whim, actually, because of Bob Monroe. and his books, and because he had mentioned it, and I was like, well, what the hell? I'll spend $150 and see what happens. So I bought a full size one, and was able to lucid dream easier. I was able to like get to heightened states in meditation, and I did have some out of body experiences too. So I do think there's something to all that, but too bad we don't get any sort of additional information, and it's just kind of thrown out there like, hey, Bob had this big setup going on and blah, 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 and it may help you too. So here is how you do it. No, none of that. We don't get that.
Over just an inch from our lips or less. And we were talking clearly, but very, very quietly. And anyway, so Bob had us back in the control room, and he asked us, says, what do you two? Do you think you were together? And Dennis and I kind of looked at each other because we hadn't compared any notes at that point. We just walked out, and I said, well, I thought so. And Dennis says, yeah, I thought so too. And Dennis says, Bob said, well, listen to this. And he hit the play button simultaneously on both my audio and Dennis's audio, which then would time sync them. So they were at the same time. And there on that audio, Dennis and I were having conversations, answering each other's questions. Oh, look at that over there. You mean, the thing that looks like a big yellow onion, but yeah, that's the one. And you see, we were chatting, having these conversations. And that was very, very important step for me because, there's a big difference between getting it intellectually and getting it at a deeper level than intellectually. There's a very big difference there. And I had gotten it at the intellectual level a long time before that because we were doing things that were basically impossible to do, and we were doing them consistently. So, all the paranormal sorts of things, the healing, the remote viewing, the, going backward and forward in time, we were doing these things that were evidential, finding things, comparing the evidence, things that we found. So I knew that something was happening, but I didn't know what, and I didn't know how. So I always had in my mind, well, maybe there is some kind of a normal explanation and I just don't know it. Or I just don't understand it. So you always tend to, not go along with it. If you're a scientist, I'm a physicist, so it really is hard to get me to take that step into this larger reality idea without an awful lot of evidence. So intellectually, I knew, okay, we've been doing a lot of impossible stuff and we do it on demand. So that was strange. But this experience just kind of nailed it for me. This experience with Dennis got to me at when I say the being level, at the deep intuitive level. And after that, I thought, this is real. And I probably felt a little, I don't know, a little lost, a little, unconnected for probably a couple of weeks. I kind of remember walking around, for a couple of weeks going, wow, this is real. This is actually real. We're just going to these places and we're doing that together, because if you just do it by yourself, well, maybe you dreamed it up. Maybe your own conscious, maybe it was like a daydream. But if you do it with somebody else,
bro,
two of you are both having daydreams in which you're having conversations with each other. That was beyond being able to come up with some kind of there must be some normal explanation. I just don't know what it is. There was no normal explanation for that. So
it is. There's definitely proof for your self, for your brain, for this physical reality experience that we have, that we're looking for proof. I wonder, how do you explain, or what advice would you give to people like myself who have a lot of spontaneous out-of-body experiences and remote viewing? I would be falling asleep and all of a sudden I'll find myself in a completely different place in a room where I look around and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm remote viewing. I am in a room somewhere and then I wake myself up, or I find myself behind a chair, or looking at a city on the top of a mountain, and then I know it's not a dream because I am aware and I'm able to look around literally. And sometimes there was a period of time, Tom, that I would find myself in front of a wall, like literally just a wall. And I'm like, here I am again. Why am I here? Why can't I go further? And then I would wake myself up. And it has blown my mind that it happens. And I wanted to know, how do you step inside that spontaneous experience and stay with it longer without it being pulling you back into reality, back here, basically?
Lucidity.
Well, the key to all of this is basically having no fear. Fear is the hook that jerks you back.
Yes.
Fear is the thing, because
surprised. I'm like, because I wasn't planning on it in that, like, I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm shocked with the proof. And I'm like, this is happening. This is real. And my mind is alert and it brings me back. So my being is stopped in that moment in time.
You see, what happens is these experiences happen at an intuitive level. These are intuitive experiences. When you start doing analysis, oh, look at me, I'm on top of a mountain, I'm doing such and such, and yes, you're excited and you're surprised, but that's your intellect doing the analysis. And as soon as you shift out of the intuitive space into the intellectual space, it's gone.
Yes.
That's it. It's gone. So the problem that people have is that everyday life teaches us to meet every new situation and every surprise and everything that happens to us with our intellect. We have to gather data. We have to assess it. We have to decide, is it safe? Is it not safe? What should we do next? What's the plan?
Who is the arbiter of truth, Tom? Is it safe? Is it not? I mean, we've all kind of seen what happens with that type of thinking.
So that's all intellectual stuff. And because life teaches that that's what you do, that's your survival. Something happens, your intellect gets a hold of it and decides, do I run? Do I fight? Do I stay? Do I engage it? What is it? Who is it?
Do I plunge? Do I allow the plunge into my veins? Do I not? Do I buy into the BS? Do I don't?
And we do that analysis instantly. Well, that's all intellectual, and that'll take you out of an intuitive state instantly. You have to get to the idea that you have experiences, and you will have those experiences, whatever they are, even if they seem a bit scary. Just go with the experience. Don't analyze it. Just have it. Say, oh, look, I'm 10,000 feet in the air looking down on such and such, and gee, I don't have an airplane or anything. Isn't that interesting? You see, and then you go flying, and then you see things and you have a nice experience. But if it's, oh my God, I'm 10,000 feet in the air and there's no airplane, and that fear then, and that analysis, the fear and the analysis go together. We analyze things that worry us, things that surprise us, things that take us, things that we're not used to. Anything that takes us by surprise, there's a little fear involved with that. What am I doing here? What's going on? And that fear gets the analysis going to, the flight, fight analysis. And as soon as that analysis starts, you're done. It's over. So you just have to be a scientist, and you have to have no fear. So whatever happens to you, if you find yourself at 10,000 feet and no airplane, that has to be, oh, isn't this interesting?
No, I love that. And I wanted.
Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is leave it there. I agree a lot with what he just said. Fear is the mind killer. It really can do us in, and especially when trying to go outside the body. So a lot of truth with that. But those that can kind of transcend that can experience a lot of amazing things. So I want to thank Dan at OverWatchProject.com and OverWatchChannel on YouTube for joining tonight. Appreciate him stopping by as always. And appreciate each and every one of you watching on Odyssey, YouTube, and Twitch and Rumble. Thanks for listening and maybe taking in the information tonight and running with it yourself and doing your own research. Appreciate all of you, and we will see each other again soon. There's going to be no streams next weekend, but before the weekend, probably may even do it Monday or Sunday night. I've got, I think, 11 NDE cases I'm going to review, so keep an eye out for that upcoming stream, and that'll be on all the platforms mentioned, which will be Odyssey, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. I'm getting pretty tired here, so late. And take care of yourselves, and we'll see each other very soon. Thanks so much.